Today on With the First Pick, it's Mock Draft Wednesday on CBS Sports Network. I'm Ryan Wilson, and joining me for the first time in a minute, my guy, two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden. Make a note, Mac. We got 36 days until the 2025 NFL
36.
Draft.
36. You know what, Ryan? Thank you for informing me about the exact days, because clearly I didn't know, but I knew you would know exactly how far we're away from this draft. So I'm excited, just like most NFL fans are excited as well. So let's rock and roll.
Yeah, shout out to your former teammate, 3-6 Jerome Bettis. That feels fitting. Former first-round pick out of Notre Dame. All right, Mac, over the next hour, we're going to get through all 32 first-round picks as we continue to roll our way through these weekly mock drafts. It's starting to feel like things are taking shape in the top five, but after that, it's getting wild. So let's get started. Let's go through this thing. You got the first overall pick because you're the guest on With the First Pick. First overall, the Tennessee Titans on the board. Are you going to overcomplicate it? Are you going to do what everyone thinks you should do?
No, there is no reason to overthink this thing with the Tennessee Titans. You need to find a franchise quarterback. That's been an issue for your program over the last few years. So you're sitting at the top of the board, right? So take advantage of it. Let's go ahead and draft Cam Ward, number one, with the Tennessee Titans. I think he is the best option for their organization moving forward. Worry about every other position down the line, but take care of the most important position and take Cam Ward with the number one selection. I think he's a day one starter. I love his mentality, and I love what he could bring to that organization there with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and it's funny because Brian Callahan did not draft Will Levis in Tennessee. He arrived a year later. Yep. And for as frenetic as Will Levis plays in the pocket, it feels like Cam Ward is the exact opposite in terms of just playing with the type of casualness you see rarely in an NFL quarterback. And I think that's going to translate as well. Next up, Cleveland Browns are on the clock. And I know they drafted our guy, or they traded for our guy, Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny's going to be the long-term answer. They've met with Russ Wilson. They have some quarterback stuff to settle as well. They would certainly be in the mix for Shedeur Sanders here. I don't know, and this is just a gut feeling. I haven't talked to anyone about this. If Shedeur wants to go to Cleveland, I think he said he would go there. But if we're being honest, a lot of people say things, and when it comes to Cleveland Browns football, and it doesn't.
You don't want to go there.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you said it, not me. So I'm going to take the layup. And they re-up Myles Garrett, one of the best players in the NFL, certainly one of the best players in Browns history. I'm going to give him some help with Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge rusher, who, like Micah Parsons at Penn State, wore number 11. Like Micah Parsons, played off-ball linebacker, and then this year in 2024 moved over to edge rush. He looks like he's been there his whole life, and he is a special dude. He's only going to get better. And this is a player, if you're a GM of any of the teams and you draft this young man, you know you are not getting fired when you go to bed at night. If you take a quarterback, your job might be in the line. So I'm going to do the simple thing. They have so many needs, Mac. They don't need to take a quarterback right away because they are not one player away. But Abdul Carter opposite what you see in Myles Garrett, that's going to be a huge problem for the rest of the AFC North. Now, pick number 3. The New York Giants need a quarterback. And the New York Giants and your Pittsburgh Steelers, they're fighting over the same quarterbacks in free agency, which is sort of funny. The Giants are in a better situation because they picked 3rd here. What are you going to do for New York?
You talked about needing a quarterback. We just flirted with Shedeur Sanders possibly going to Cleveland. If the Cleveland Browns do exactly what you just made happen, I'm ecstatic because it seems like whatever quarterback they draft, it doesn't work out well. But in terms of this organization that has championship pedigree, a tradition in winning championships, go ahead and make this thing as simple as possible. Draft Shedeur Sanders with the 3rd overall pick for the New York Giants. You talked about potentially flirting with the ideal of bringing in a bridge-like quarterback. I'm okay with that because Shedeur is the future for this organization. He can handle everything that comes with playing for the Giants organization. When you talk about being there in New York, he can handle that. He can handle the spotlight. He can handle the criticism. He's been a professional almost his entire career, collegiate football life based on his family ties and who his father is, and he's handled all of that in the best professional way as possible. So I love Shedeur Sanders being able to land with the New York Giants and being their QB1 for the future.
And they desperately, to your point, they need a quarterback. A couple notes as we're recording this, Mac, this is the Big 12 Pro Day week. Shedeur is there. He's not going to work out. The word on the street is that April 4th in Colorado, and they'll, with the first pick already might be there, Shedeur will throw. So I'm looking forward to seeing him throw because we have not seen him do that since the fall But that said, there are two quarterbacks that are first-round locks, and Shedeur is obviously the other one after Cam Ward. Next up, and this is a testament to how far Coach Bryant has brought this program in Colorado, the New England Patriots on the clock. They don't need a quarterback. They got Drake May, but he needs some help. Now, they need offensive line help. This feels a little too rich for me, so I'm taking the best player in this draft. This is the guy that's number one on my board, the Heisman Trophy winner, Shedeur's teammate, Travis Hunter, because we know what he can do on defense, and you pair him with Christian Gonzalez, that's a lockdown group at the cornerback position. They got Carlton Davis in free agency, so maybe that's less of a need on the defensive side of the ball for Travis, and you put him on offense, and now suddenly Drake May has a legit number one playmaker, and the things that Travis Hunter is able to do on the field, very few people on planet Earth can do, and I think he can come in there, whether you split the snaps 30-30 on offense, defense, or you just use him on offense solely because you have Carlton Davis. It does not matter to me, but he can get after it. He'll give you a threat at all three levels, something that the Patriots haven't seen going back a ways, maybe even back to the Randy Moss and Wes Welker days back in the 07 when they went undefeated. But I'm taking Travis Hunter here, not overthinking this thing. What you got?
I got a question for you, Ryan. With you making this pick, are you taking Travis Hunter more of will he be more of a wide receiver for you or more of a defensive back, cornerback? Because clearly he's going to play both ways to some degree, but you're making this draft pick for the Patriots more so with him being what?
He's going to be Drake May's best friend because they got Carlton Davis, so they got it unlocked in the secondary. And if you want to put him out there in specialty packages on defense, I'm fine with that. But here's what I keep coming back to, Mac, and I said this last year, I'm going to keep saying it until I'm proven wrong. The Patriots traded out of the pick at the top of the second round. They could have had Ladd McConkey, and they traded down, and they got Jalen Polk. Now, Jalen Polk can be a good player. Ladd McConkey went crazy last year for Los Angeles. So that ship is sailed. They got to get Drake May some help, and that's what Travis Hunter brings. But you're right. If he goes to another team that has wide receiver depth, you're talking about playing Travis Hunter on the defensive side of the ball because he's cornerback one for me as well. That's how special he is. All right.
And to your point, he really
weren't
active with wide receivers via free agency. I think they brought in Mac Hollins, but they haven't really done a lot. So they need some pass catchers to surround a young quarterback.
All right, let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 5. They got a new coach, Liam Cohen. They got a new GM, and they got needs on both sides of the ball. What are you going to do here for the Jaguars?
Let's continue to build in the trenches, Ryan, on the defensive side. I think Jacksonville, their fans would love this pick. I have the Jags taking Mason Grimm, the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, a 3-down lineman. I love his motor. I love his get off the ball. I love his hand placement. He plays with a relentless edge. And think about this, right, as a defensive line front, as we see it now. You add Mason Grimm to what they already have with Josh Hines Allen, Eric Armstead, Travon Walker. That is a dominant type of front to make every other area on that defense better. You talk about 3-4 guys that can win their one-on-one matchups. 3 guys that have experience to help mentor the young player in Mason and understanding what he needs to be at his best. I would love that for Jacksonville. When you look at trying to be relevant in their division, it starts with being able to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And you remember most recently when they had their glory-like moments, they had a nickname for their defense led by Calais Campbell, Saxonville. When they had guys that can put pressure on opposing quarterbacks that make life easier for guys in the secondary. Saxonville was their name. Hopefully they can recreate that mantra there, especially they're able to land a guy like Mason Grimm.
And by the way, guess who Saxonville helps? Trevor Lawrence in that offense. They don't have to do everything because that defense has been not at that level in recent years. And the one thing I'll say about Mason Graham, he doesn't look like Calais Campbell getting off the bus. And sometimes we overthink it. I don't care if he has short arms. I don't care if he weighs 296.
No.
You talked about all the things he did well for Michigan. That will translate, and that's why he's going to be the first defensive tackle off the board.
He has a little bit of Braden Fisk in his game.
Yeah.
You know, same measurables, body structure, things like that. He has a little bit of that in his game. And if that works out well for Jacksonville, I don't think he will be hearing anyone crying coming from Duval.
And by the way, we talked to Braden Fisk last year at the Combine, and he knew that he had to overcome the stigma of having short arms. And again, we all overthunk it. And if we did it over again, he'd be a first-round pick. So just
facts, no question.
Yeah.
Probably top
Trust
15.
your eyes. Absolutely. All right. Now, this is a guy you do want getting off the bus first. This is my pick for the Las Vegas Raiders at number 6. Tetairoa McMillan, 6'4", 215. Now, we were all saying, oh, can he run? He didn't show up at the combine, didn't want to run there. Well, he went to his pro day, ran a 4.48 B-Max. So I think he assuaged any concerns about how fast he can be. This is not his game, stacking DBs all day long. His game is contested catches, high points, and then making plays at all three levels. He's a really good route runner for his size. He reminds me of a more athletic Drake London. I've been saying that. He reminds me of a T. Higgins type. Drake was a first-round pick. T should have been a first-round pick. And I think Geno Smith, probably more than how his relationship seemed to end on the field with DK Metcalf, will have one of these relationships with Tyrone McMillan where he's just throwing balls short, intermediate, and deep, and all T-Mac is doing is coming down with it. So T-Mac, I was going to say, B-Mac, how do you like T-Mac?
I love his game. When you talk about the comparisons, for me, he has the measurables of a T. Higgins, but the smoothness of an AJ Green and how he runs his routes is very, very smooth, and it's effortless in terms of what he does, and also his catch radius. So this would be a bookend pick for the Raiders, adding more talent around the new quarterback in Geno Smith. So to your point, the only thing he needed to do in answering was the 40. Ran that 4.48. Let's go. It's time to go make some money. And what better place to make it would be in Vegas for him, in my opinion. So I love that.
Yeah, new coach Pete Carroll, new GM, new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. They're going in the right direction. All right, we're 6 picks into this thing. Things are about to get wild, B-Mac. We're going to take a quick break, come back and see what the New York Jets do at number 7 right after this. Welcome back to With the First Pick here on Mock Draft Wednesday. That's B-Mac. I'm Ryan Wilson. All right, B-Mac, you got to rep new head coach Aaron Glenn, new GM Darren Muji. What are the Jets doing at number 7?
Number 7, the board is wide open for the New York Jets, but I think about the situation that Aaron Glenn came from in terms of what he was a part of in Detroit. In the trenches, right? They won the battle on either side, especially on the offensive side. If you look at a dire need for the Jets, continuing to improve what? The offensive line. So for me, I had the New York Jets taking Armand Membo, talented, versatile offensive lineman, one of the more physical presence in this draft. When you look at his position from Mizzou, a do-it-all offensive line. I love how he finishes. And you look at having Fashanu on the left side. Now you're able to get Membo on the right side. You have 2 bookend tackles, similar to what Aaron Glenn had the luxury of practicing against with Detroit with Pinay-Sewell and Decker on the right, on the left side. So you look at those bookend tackles, you're trying to recreate success levels, right? You had success there in Detroit with those type of tackles. Clearly, you're trying to create the same thing with the New York Jets. And I do believe Jets fans won't have an issue with Amar Membo based on what he did at Mizzou and what his talent level and potential says he could do in a New York Jets uniform. So for me, that's been a dire need for the Jets in terms of continuity and balance on the offensive line. Not to mention, he is a finisher, Ryan. He does not mind putting you through the turf. I love that mentality.
I love him. He's only 6'3" in quotation marks. I do not care that he's 6'3". He has 34-inch arms, which are plenty long to play right tackle. And sometimes teams, and even folks in the media, want to kick these guys inside. He can play right tackle. And you have 2 athletic bruisers in Membo on the right side and Fashanu on the left side. And then you get to cooking with Justin Fields, who's now the Jets' new quarterback on that 2-year deal. I love it. Next up, the Carolina Panthers, number 8. And a few players had the turnaround that Bryce Young did. B-Mac, I thought his career was over in Carolina after week 2. He brought it back. So the quarterback isn't even a concern. And in fact, we're going to spend some time helping him on defense. They moved on from Brian Burns, who's now with the Giants. They do have Jadeveon Clowney, but Jadeveon Clowney, you don't bring him in to get after the passer. He's sort of a do-it-all run stuffer who can set the edge. I'm giving him Shamar Stewart, who was built like Jadeveon Clowney, but 10 years younger. And you know him. You spoke with him on your podcast with Pat Peterson. He can get after it. He's every bit of 285. He ran a disappointing 4.59, I believe. He thought he was going to run faster than that. And that athleticism shows up on tape. And you and I have been talking about this. He didn't have the production at Texas A&M, but I think he is just scratching the surface on who he can become. And I love the idea of adding him to that defense because of his size, his athleticism, and his ability and the understanding that he is going to get better the longer he plays at the next level once he gets to coaching and gets in those NFL systems and all that comes with it. So I'm taking him here. And this edge rush class is deep, deep, deep. And I say that knowing that at number 9, Saints might need some edge rush help as well.
Yeah, you talked about how deep this edge rushing class is. I have the New Orleans Saints drafting Mike Green. I think he's one of the more talented rushers in terms of production and sacks that's available in this draft. You look at what he's done. He's lived and stayed in the backfield throughout his collegiate career. And also, when you talk about going down to Mobile during the Senior Bowl, Ryan, you were there. You know, some folks had concerns about his strength, right? The power. Well, he has strength and power, along with an array of pass rushing moves. He also has the ability to be a bull rusher when need be. He's a do-it-all guy. I love his ability to set the edge. And if you're the New Orleans Saints, you know, Cam Jordan, he's not getting any younger, but he still has some tread left on the tires. What better situation you have in terms of drafting Mike Green and allowing him to learn from one of the proven vets that's ever stepped foot there in your organization in Cam Jordan, and also being able to give him the baton whenever he leaves. And now you have a new up-and-coming pass rusher that knows how to play the game the right way because he's learned from one of the best to ever do it in the Saints organization.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Mike Green was so good at the Senior Bowl, he didn't need to practice on Thursday. That's how big he blew it up on Tuesday and Wednesday. And no one plays harder for 60 plays a game than Mike Green. My comp for him, because of the same size and the same sort of hair on fire mentality, is Will Anderson Jr. Like, that's how he gets after it. And I'm gonna put you on the spot, D-Mac. You know who went to the same high school in Lafayette High School in Williamsburg, Virginia, as Mike Green?
Ooh, Williamsburg, Virginia. Mike Tomlin?
OG Lawrence Taylor.
Oh, okay. Great company.
Yeah, he said they have a picture of LT up in the hallway. He said he want to get his picture next to LT, and at this rate, he might do that eventually. So he's a fun watch.
Yes.
All right.
I love that. Okay. Great history right there.
There you go. Next up, pick 10, the Chicago Bears. Last year, we know what they did. They got Caleb Williams, and then at number 9, they got Roma Dunze. At the time, there were some conversations with that 9th pick. Maybe they get offensive tackle help. Maybe they get Montez Sweat, some edge rush help. This time around, and they've done a ton in free agency in terms of building the interior of that offensive line. I'm going to continue to help Caleb Williams. I'm taking Will Campbell, the left tackle at LSU. And you might say, hey, man, we got Braxton Jones. We got Darnell Wright. Great. Keep those guys coming because we're going to put guys in there that can play. I do not care that Will Campbell's arms are sub 33 inches. Watch him play at the highest level against some of the best dudes in the SEC during his LSU career, and that is all you need to know. I talked to Walter Nolan about this at the Senior Bowl, Mac, and he said he's been going up against Will Campbell since the high school days, and he said that's one of the toughest dudes he's faced. And Walter Nolan is a guy that has some legit first-round buzz and first-round potential. So I'm getting Caleb Williams help here. The edge rush class, as we talked about, is so deep that we can find guys later in the draft to help Montez Sweat. But I'm going to help Caleb Williams first and then worry about the rest of this stuff later. Speaking of helping out the quarterbacks, pick 11 here at San Francisco. Brock Purdy needs some help. What are you going to do for him, B-Mac?
Well, you talked about how deep this talented offensive tackle class is, offensive line in general. Right, I have the San Francisco 49ers kind of doing something they don't usually do in terms of addressing the O-line in the first round, but now it's about that time. I have the San Francisco 49ers taking Kelvin Banks Jr., talented tackle from Texas, and here's why this makes sense for me, Ryan. Trent Williams, right? Still that guy, but it's safe to say he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning. So let's go ahead and prepare for life after Trent Williams, and not to mention that depth that Kelvin can provide for the entire offensive line in terms of either the right side or left side. And you know, whenever Trent Williams decides to call it quits, you have a bookend left tackle ready to go to protect Brock Purdy's blind side. I think he's the second best tackle behind Will Campbell, who just went off the board to the Chicago Bears. And I look at left tackles just like I look at quarterbacks. The best time to draft them is when you don't really need them, because now you can kind of allow him to go through the progression the right way. And then when he's ready to step in and be that starter, he won't miss a beat. I can see that easily happen with Kelvin in terms of what they already have going on. They're in San Francisco, but also, too, they got to get prepared for life after Trent Williams and add much needed talented depth to the entire tackle syndrome there in San Francisco.
Yeah, Kelvin Banks is a big-time athlete. If you want an idea of who he is, go watch that Michigan game where him and that old Texas offense dominated against some real dudes on Michigan, including Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and a lot of guys are going to end up getting drafted. All right, Dallas Cowboys here at 12. And I could go with Ashton Jeanty. That feels like the popular pick. Ted McMillan's already off the board, so I won't be able to get CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott help here. I'm going to go on defense because that defense had some issues last year, B-Mac. DeMarvion Overshown was not one of those issues, but unfortunately he got hurt again. And I'm going to get a 2-for-1. I'm going to get a Micah Parsons clone. I'm taking Jalen Walker out of Georgia. He can play off ball.
Okay.
He can play edge. His projection at the next level is probably going to be more edge than off ball, but you can move him around. And when you watch that Georgia defense, number 11, shout out to Micah Parsons there, was all over the tape, sideline to sideline, coming downhill, filling gaps in the run game. He can play in space. His athleticism is through the roof. He's also a great young man. We talked to him at the combine. And this feels about the range he may come off the board. And I even at 12, I think he's going to be a huge value for a Cowboys team. So maybe not the sexy pick Cowboys fans want, but it's the pick they need because they got to figure out that defense, especially with some key injuries late last season. So Jalen Walker, linebacker / edge rusher out of Georgia, going to the Dallas Cowboys at 12. All right, Mac, we're almost at the halfway point here, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what we're going to do for the Miami Dolphins in terms of helping Tua Tagovailoa in that offense. And we'll talk about that right after the break. Welcome back to With the First Pick here on Mock Draft Wednesday. That's B-Mac. I'm Ryan Wilson. All right, B-Mac, pick 13. Miami Dolphins on the clock. And just a little preview here. This dude you got them taking, I love me some him. He got injured, but he is going to be a game changer when he gets healthy and gets it on the field.
Yes, sir. Josh Simmons. I have Miami selecting Josh Simmons in the first round. You talked about the talent. You talked about the upside, the potential. He has all of the above. And the thing I love about this pick for Miami, it's a huge necessity for their team. Offensively, everything starts with the running game, right? The misdirection that leads to the play action opportunities in the passing game. But if you look at what we did not see from Miami was inconsistent play from the offensive line unit in totality. They were dealing with injuries and they weren't just living up to the billing. Now you go get a guy that's a highly talented individual. He plays the game the right way, and he also provides depth. And we don't know the status of Teron Armstead after this season. So safe to say, if he's ready to walk away and enjoy the fruits of his labor along with the sunshine down in Miami, you're okay. You're in good hands because you have Josh Simmons. So I love everything about this pick for the Miami Dolphins because it makes sense from either side.
Yeah, left tackle at Ohio State, who got hurt in that Oregon game, the first Oregon matchup, and was lost for the season due to a knee injury. Transfers from San Diego State, and I talked to him at the combine, BMAC, and I said, why did you transfer? And he essentially said, I needed to up the competition level because I did everything I could have done at San Diego State. And he went to Ohio State, and he fit in without issue. The only concern is that he didn't face some of the better competition second half of the season. But when you see him walk into a room, he commands that room, and he has a little edge to him. And I think when he's healthy, this feels about the range that he goes off the board. And I know NFL teams are in love with his body of work as well. Next up at pick 14, Indianapolis Colts. Now, look, man, this is a popular destination. Take a tight end. You can take a safety here. And some of those players are certainly available. I'm going to bolster the offensive line. They brought in Daniel Jones. This is still Anthony Richardson's team as far as I'm concerned. They lost Will Fries in free agency. I'm taking one of the best players in this draft class, not just an offensive lineman or an offensive tackle or an offensive guard. I'm taking Tyler Booker out of Alabama. All that dude does is his job, and he does it at a high level. He played left guard at Alabama last season. I'll go move him to the right side. And BMAC a few years ago when we talked about the Colts overdrafting Quentin Nelson because he was a guard, they got that one right. So now you have Quentin Nelson as he strolls toward retirement in the next 4 or 5 or 6 years or whenever, and you pair him with Tyler Booker. Oh, boy, you were cooking with gas. So I love the idea of getting him here. And any chance you have to bolster an offensive line to help a young quarterback, I'm all in favor of doing that. All right, next up, pick 15, Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that threw everybody last year and took Michael Penix Jr. 8th overall after signing Kirk Cousins. They got that right with the Michael Penix Jr. part. They got to figure out the Kirk Cousins part. What are you going to do for the Falcons at 15?
You got to get the defense better. I really love where they're currently sitting offensively. They got some guys, especially with the young quarterback and Michael Penix. It's all about the defense for me in the first round for Atlanta. I have Atlanta selecting James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee, went to the combine, ran extremely fast, looked real good. Of course, everything he did in Indy confirmed his game tapes. while in Knoxville. I love his first step off the ball. And this is a huge need for Atlanta because trying to put consistent pass rush on opposing quarterbacks has been an Achilles heel for their team. So now you go get a very, very overly talented guy in James Pierce, and you still have an opportunity to add other playmakers to the defensive side as well. Not to mention, we look at some of the concerns in the secondary. So I think this is a great, great pick, would be a great pick for the Atlanta Falcons and potentially a day one type starter in James Pierce.
Yeah, this is the top 15 talent all day long on the field. And as some teams have some off-field concerns, we'll see how that sorts itself out. But strictly in terms of football, James Pierce is a dude. And they drafted Braylon Trice last year on day 2, who got injured in training camp. So he hasn't even had a chance to play the edge rusher out of Washington. So they're going to have some young guys there. Go ahead.
And I'll say this with Atlanta, you need, hearing that Travon Walker potentially could be available from the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's another name to monitor as well in terms of adding more talent to that defensive front. Because if Jacksonville's ready to move on from Travon Walker, I think you got to really entertain what it would take to get him, along with what I just mentioned in terms of the draft, because you can never have enough pass rushers. Pass rushers and corners, there's always a need for those players. So if I'm Atlanta, try to stockpile in terms of guys that put pressure on pass rushers, on quarterbacks, because to my saying, I need players that look like what they hunt. I need guys that look like Josh Allen, that go hunt Josh Allen. Those are the type of players you need, and that would be another name to monitor as we go throughout this free agency period. Of course, hearing new news every day from the NFL.
Mac, I'm shocked that you're repping the DBs as the most important people on the roster. By the way,
have enough D.
Speaking of DBs, my next pick is one of my favorite players in this draft class. I talked to him, me and our buddy Lee J. Dooswell talked to him at the Combine, and I was ready to run through a wall as an old man after talking to Jahdae Barron, the cornerback out of Texas / he can play in the slot, he can play close to the line of scrimmage, he can play free safety, he can do it all. And I have him going 16th to the Arizona Cardinals. And you might say, man, they got Budda Baker there, they got Max Melton there, they got Garrett Williams. We can find a spot for Jahdae Barron, who ran a 4.39 at the Combine, and he plays that fast. He reminds me in terms of his ball skills and the way he approaches the position, B-Mac, of Brian Branch. And Brian Branch slipped to the second round because he ran a 4.58. Again, we were overthinking that one. Jahdae Barron is a first-round pick for me. He is a middle-of-the-first-round pick for me. He is going to improve your locker room and improve your secondary. I got no issues with Jahdae Barron. What's B-Mac's thoughts on JB?
So I got a question for you. This is the first corner to come off the board, right? And the first corner that came off the board was not Will Johnson. Where were your, thoughts in terms of knowing that Arizona could use a guy in the secondary cornerback and decided to go with Jahdae Barron instead of Will Johnson, the talented corner from Michigan?
Yeah, Jahdae gives you more versatility and where you can line him up. And Will Johnson, his 2023 tape, to quote B-Mac, is hot tape. He had a turf toe, so he missed the second half of the season, 2024. And the comp for him over the summer, and he was my number one player on my big board coming out of the summer, Will Johnson was Patrick Surtain II. Now, injuries, he didn't run at the Combine. His pro day's coming up. I think he has a hamstring injury, so I don't know how fast he is. And fair or not, if I don't know how fast you are playing that position, and you might be a 4.55 guy, I can't just blindly draft you. It's one thing if you're a tight end or you play another position where speed isn't necessarily the end-all be-all. Now, I still like Will Johnson, and his tape is what it is, but I know what Jahdae Barron is, and Jahdae Barron's healthy, and then he blew away my expectations in terms of how well he performed at the Combine, both in terms of the interviews and obviously on on-field workouts. But that's a question the team's got to figure out. All right, next up, Green Bay Packers. Pick 17. What are you going to do for Green Bay, B-Mac?
I think Cincy, right?
Oh, I skipped you.
Yeah.
No, we're on Green Bay, pick 17. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. You know what? You know what threw me off? The G for Georgia. I can't read my notes. You're right. 17, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Hey, Ryan, we cannot overlook Cincinnati with all the money they're giving out right now. We got to definitely give them flowers because they're not cheap anymore. Right. They're paying their players the right way. So shots out to Cincinnati. And with that being said, with them in the first round, offense is good. They're good on the offensive side. It's about the defense for Cincinnati. One thing we know about Cincinnati for sure, you're losing at least one of your edge rushers from a year ago in Sam Hubbard. He retired. You're already telling Trey Hendrickson he can look to see what his trade value is. So we don't know if he will return to your organization, even though you would like to work out an extension for him. So you got to add more edge rushers to your defense, because that is the best way, Ryan, in my opinion, to improve the entire defense. Go get guys that can win their one-on-one matchups to make quarterbacks uncomfortable. I have Cincinnati taking Mikael Williams, the other talented edge rusher from UGA. I love his stature. He's a bit bigger, than his counterpart, but yet is still overly powerful, and he plays the game the right way. He's been coached the right way, and he's able to display that on the football field week in and week out. And this is a definite need for the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of what we don't know the status of Trey Hendrickson. And even if you extend Trey Hendrickson, you still gonna make a play like this, because to my point, if you watch his tape, all he's done is got better year in and year out, and he plays with a relentless attitude. This makes all the sense in the world for Cincinnati.
Yeah, and he is just scratching the surface on who he can become. He reminds me a little bit of Travon Walker coming out. The difference is that Michael will probably get drafted in the middle of the first round, which feels about the right range for him. 260 at the combine, 267 at his pro day, ran a 4.75. I have issues with none of those things. And to your larger point, currently the edge rush depth chart in Cincinnati, Joseph Asai, Trey Hendrickson, who may not be there, and then Miles Murphy, the former first-round pick out of Clemson, who hasn't yet lived up to expectations. So you cannot go into the season with Joseph Asai and an unproven Miles Murphy. You have to get depth there, especially if Trey Hendrickson is going to be elsewhere. And you talk about winning your one-on-one blocks. I don't know why you would want to move on from Trey Hendrickson. Give that man what he wants, because all he did was win his one-on-one blocks each and every week. And just ask the Steelers and Russ Wilson about it the last time they met.
Exactly. Led the league in NFL sacks last year.
All right. Here's a fun little story for you, B-Mac. You talked about Will Johnson being CB1 over the summer. Next up with the Seattle Seahawks at 18. I'm taking Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, baby. Ooh. That's a guy that ran in the I think he ran in the 4.3s at the combine.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He was moving, and he has ball skills. And this is, and I should lean on you for this, but his ability to get out of breaks coming downhill, as smooth as you want him to be. Now, he missed time with a shoulder injury, and that clearly wasn't his fault. He just got banged up. But this guy's tape he gets your attention, and it's fun watching him play. What do you think about Maxwell Harrison going to Seattle? And more importantly, what do you think about Maxwell Harrison, the player?
This is a really intriguing pick, because he has a little bit of a Devon Witherspoon in his game in terms of the typewriter feet, very, very quick, elusive, and his lateral movement is super impressive. And then you talked about what he did in Indy, ran that 4.3, surprised everyone. And then when you watch the tape, you're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So this is a very, very intriguing move for Seattle, because, like I said, he's kind of in that Devon Witherspoon body type, but Devon Witherspoon is a different animal. He has his own cage in the zoo, because he's different. he's wired differently. You feel what I'm saying? So, but you can never have enough DBs, and I would love this pick for Seattle, because this definitely would shake up things. And you look at how they play defense under Mike McDonald. They attack a lot. They bring a lot of pressure. So oftentimes the guys in the back end, they're in man-to-man situations. So this would make perfect sense for me when you look at Seattle.
If Tyler Booker had been there, I would have certainly considered him to bolster the interior of that offensive line. But Maxwell Harrison, you talk about Devon Witherspoon, you talk about Reek Woolen. Okay, we're cooking with gas when it comes to that secondary. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll get to pick 19. And it looks like the cornerback train keeps on rolling. Will it be Will Johnson's turn when the Buccaneers go on the clock? We'll talk about that right after this. Welcome back to With the First Pick here on Mock Draft Wednesday. All right, B-Mac, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick 19. What do you like?
Taking cornerback Trey Amos, SEC product, Ole Miss, 6'1", 195, ran 4.4 at the combine. Has very, very hot tape as well. And this is a position of need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of depth outside of Jamel Dean, opposite of Jamel Dean. This makes perfect sense for Tampa Bay in terms of what they want to do defensively, especially when they moved on from Carlton Davis. They were trying to figure things out, didn't really get any answers. I think he answers their questions with this draft pick.
Yeah, I'll just say this. We talked to Jackson Dart at the combine. He said the best SEC corner he faced, Trey Amos. So that tells you all you need to know, because they're a bunch of dudes in the SEC playing
A
cornerback.
bunch.
Next up, pick 20, the Denver Broncos. And typically this might be a situation where you take one of these ball and tight ends, Colson Loveland or Tyler Warren. They got Evan Ingram. And you know who's sitting out there, B-Mac? Ashton Jeanty. And guess what I'm going to do?
Question.
I'm taking Ashton Jeanty to give Bo Nix a little more help there. And he might be gone long before this, but if he is there, Sean Payton is going to get his money's worth out of Ashton Jeanty, man. I don't care that he's 5'7" or whatever. I talked to him about the combine, about the height thing. He said not one single team asked him about his height because they were too busy focusing on his tape, and his tape, again, to quote you, B-Mac, is hot tape. All right, pick 21, your Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, there's no quarterbacks there to be taken. What are you doing?
Yes, sir. Let's continue to add playmakers to the offense. Let's add some speed. Have Pittsburgh taking Matthew Golden from Texas. I think he ran the fastest 40 time for all wide receivers, if I'm not mistaken.
4.29.
4.29. And the thing about his 4.29, when you turn on his game tape, you see 4.29. You see it without a shadow of a doubt. Not to mention he's a very, very prolific route runner for a guy coming out of college, and he catches everything that comes his way. And I love his ability to win 50-50 balls as well. Not being a 6'3", 6'4" type of wide receiver, smaller, but yet and still he does a great job in competing for those 50-50 opportunities. So you look at Pittsburgh, DK, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, who took Roman Wilson last year from Michigan, who didn't really play a lot, but you add more talent and more speed to a wide receiver room that can definitely make whoever the quarterback life is a little easier.
Yeah, my comp for Matthew Golden was Jordan Addison, and Jordan Addison I can get behind for sure. Next up at pick 22, the Jim Harbaugh transformation continues for the Chargers. This dude's somehow sitting out there, and he feels like the most Jim Harbaugh guy ever, right? Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. Justin Herbert, you are welcome. We got you a dude to throw the ball to. They got Najee Harris on a one-year deal at running back from Pittsburgh to join them there. And this guy, along with Ladd McConkey, they could combine for 3,000 yards. It feels like catching the ball down the field. I love this pick here. All right. Now we're coming to the Green Bay Packers. And they're picking at pick 23.
The Packers, I have them selecting Will Johnson, who's, still available. We talked about the speed concerns, but if I'm Green Bay, we figure that out later. He has pretty good tape coming from Michigan, considered to be the top corner on most analyst boards, but yet and still, he's still available. And when you look at moving on from Eric Stokes, former first rounder, potentially trying to move on from Jair Alexander, you need to add depth. And the thing I love about Will Johnson, he's a bigger guy, around 6'1", 6'2". He fits a different mold than what you currently have going on with the majority of your cornerbacks there in Green Bay. So looking at that division, you're playing against quarterbacks that can throw it to really, really good wide receivers. This is an area of need for the Green Bay Packers, Will Johnson.
Yeah, and then here's the thing. And Eric Stokes battled injury, but he ran that COVID 4.29 or whatever he ran. So speed isn't necessarily everything if you're a big cornerback. Joey Porter Jr. ran in the 4.5s. He's the lockdown corner in Pittsburgh. So Will Johnson can have a fantastic career. We just don't know on paper how fast he is. I know how fast this next young man is, going to the Minnesota Vikings to pick 24. And this just feels like one of these picks that makes too much sense not to happen. Malachi Starks, a safety out of Georgia. Yes, Harrison Smith's coming back. But Malachi Starks is a guy that can line up anywhere. And he is one of the smartest guys on the football field. Huge Kirby Smart, was a huge Malachi Starks fan, and for obvious reasons. And he was usually the best athlete on the field in SEC games filled with great athletes. Speaking of great athletes here, pick 25. Houston Texans is getting a dude that falls down the draft boards, and this is good news for them.
Yeah, another SEC guy coming off the board, Luther Burden. Talented wide receiver, definitely an area of need for the Houston Texans. Tank Dell, season-ending injury. He will not be ready to go in 2026. It seems like 2025, it seems like they're moving on from Stephon Diggs. Even though you brought in Christian Kirk, continuing to add talent to that wide receiver room is a necessity. I love Luther Burden, not to mention what he has in terms of yak, yards after the catch. You rarely see the first defender bring him down. I love that.
6'0", 200, sub 4.5. Checks every box if you're looking for a slot guy who can do a little bit of everything. All right. Down the home stretch here, B-Mac. Got 28 to 32 to get through, and we'll get through those final picks right after this break. All right, B-Mac, in the time we have remaining, let's go through picks 26 through 32. I'll read off a couple of these so we can get to some of the juicier names at the bottom of the list here. Pick 26, the Rams. I have them taking Subone Rebel, the cornerback out of ECU. He tore his ACL in the fall, but he is long, rangy, and has ball skills. Pick 27, you had the Baltimore Ravens taking Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. And they had so many dudes in that Ole Miss defense. I'm surprised they didn't go undefeated, but it didn't happen for them, unfortunately. Pick 28, I had the Detroit Lions taking Gray Zabel, one of the best leaders in this draft class when you talk to teams, and he went down to the Senior Bowl and just absolutely balled out playing guard and center. New positions for him. He looked like he'd been playing there his entire life. And that brings us to pick 29, where you had the Washington Commanders taking Donovan Jackson, the guard who had to play tackle for much of the season because Josh Simmons got hurt. Yep. Tell me about Donovan Jackson.
Versatility. You talked about, he's a guard, but he moved out to the tackle position and held it down. I think for Washington, clearly they've been trying to improve their offensive line. They went and got Laramie, which is huge. But now, looking at what happened with Sam Cosmi in the playoff game, remember, he was their best guard. He tore his ACL, not knowing where his status is, especially to start this season. Clearly, getting a guy like Donovan helps Washington in terms of the overall depth concept, not to mention if Sam isn't ready to go, potentially you have your bookend starter if Sam is not 100% healthy.
Yep, next up. And he's a great young man, too. I had an opportunity to talk with him at the Combine, and he is going to be a great locker room guy. Pick 30, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock here. They brought back Taylor Rapp. They brought back DeMar Hamlin. This young man this guy does not play. And I'm talking about Nick Emmanwori, the safety out of South Carolina. 6'3", 220, double checks here, 4.38 VMAC, and he plays that fast. And sometimes when guys are that big and run fast in the straight line, they can't move laterally. He can move laterally. He'll thump you in the run game. He can flip his hips. He has ball skills for days, and he just turned 21 years old. You put him in that secondary, and you are getting after it. I love this guy, and if you told me he went 15 picks higher, I'd be like, yes, sir, I see that as well. All right, next up. Closing this thing out here with the Kansas City Chiefs, pick 31. How are you going to help them out?
Interior, Kenneth Grant, massive defensive tackle, real quick, swift feet. You pair him up next to Chris Jones, and now you're really cooking with gas. I love his film. You look at what he did playing next to Mason Grimm. So he's used to being next to an alpha, and he can coexist nicely in those situations. This would be a huge, huge get for the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of what they do defensively, also in terms of what he does as a pass rusher, because people don't talk about his ability to rush the passer, but I love what he brings in that element, especially with his size and his strength.
It's funny to think that at 3:30 he was overshadowed by someone, and that'd be Mason Graham next to him. But another team, we'd be talking about Kenneth Grant first, but that's how good he is. Finally, pick 32, the Philadelphia Eagles. And Eagles fans get angry no matter who you take for them. Y'all can get mad at this if you want, but this would be a home run pick. Colston Loveland is somehow still sitting there. Dallas Goedert, Colston Loveland. Producer loves it. So we're good there. Colston Loveland, A.J. Brown, Slim Reaper. Let's get after it. Jalen Hurts, you are going to be that much better offensively. Offensive line is set. The defense is good. Maybe you can help out there if you want to. But Colston Loveland showed up at the Combine with his arm in a sling. He's going to be fine. He can line up in line. Yes. He's insanely athletic. He can run every route. There's no reason not to love Colston Loveland. That's it for here.
I agree.
For us here at BMAC. Great mock draft. Sure. Get with the first pick wherever you get your podcast. And remember, BMAC, 36 days until the NFL draft.
36 and counting.